Have you ever replayed the same conversation over and over? Thought, have I made the right decision? Stayed up all night just thinking of every possible outcome. We often believe the more thought we put into something, the more we think about something, the more peace we will get. But actually, the opposite can be quite true. I've recently read a book which really helped me fully understand what overthinking was actually all about, and sometimes how much damage it can actually cause. Hi, my name's Kim. This is Sue's Soul. That book was Stop Thinking, Start Living by Richard Carlson. And today I would like to share some of the ideas that stood out for me. We often assume that thinking is always helpful. After all, that's how we get through life. We have to think to make decisions. We think so we understand and learn from our experiences. So it seems logical that the more we think about something, the better the outcome will be. This book actually totally changed that perspective on thinking. At least it changed it for me. The author suggests that much of our suffering comes from not what's actually happening around us, but what our brain is actually making up. If you think back and you think about conversations you replay time after time again, you think of the worst possible scenarios. What if I made a fool of myself? What if I upset my best friend? What if she'll never speak to me again? You make up the worst possible scenarios in your mind, and none of it is actually happening. Most other people during a conversation, they'll pick up on something and then it's gone. So we go through the conversation over and over again, wishing we had changed it, wishing we had said something else, and thinking we've upset everybody around us. And we end up suffering for it. The same happens with the future. Perhaps you're thinking about changing jobs, maybe ending a relationship, making any type of big life decision, and your mind will give you every single worst scenario. What happens if I get judged? What happens if I fail? What happens if I don't like it? What happens if I lose everything? Before long, you've mentally lived through every single worst case scenario before you've even took a step. What I actually found interesting was that our brains don't do this to hurt us. They actually do this to protect us. Our ancestors survived because they anticipated danger. If they heard a rustle in a bush, they would think the worst case scenario, there was a predator after them. And in many cases, that would save their lives. The problem is our brains haven't evolved as quickly as the world has. Today, we don't run from wild animals. Instead, our brain treats social uncertainty or making the wrong decision as if they were life-threatening events. So they keep searching, they keep analysing, they try and eliminate every possible risk. But the truth is, it normally creates more anxiety. Before we go any further, I think it's very important we make the distinction. Thinking deeply is not the enemy. We have to think deeply in certain situations. If you're looking to invest money, if you're looking to buy a house, you have to look at every single scenario to ensure you make the right decision. That's not overthinking. That's responsible decision making. The same applies when you're reflecting on a mistake. You couldn't learn from your mistakes if you didn't think about them deeply. So you'll ask yourself, what made me make that choice? What happened? Why did it happen? Reflection helps us grow. The problems begin when the self-reflection turns into self-criticism. When we replay the same event over and over without learning anything new, we're no longer growing, we're simply suffering. For me, that's where healthy thinking crosses the line into overthinking. I've created a simple table which explains the difference between constructive thinking and overthinking. If you'd like to read through them, just pause the video. I think this distinction is incredibly important because we don't want to stop thinking, but we do need to be aware when we become trapped in our overthinking. The more I read through the book, the more I actually started to understand that overthinking was not logical. Overthinking was based from fear. Fear of disappointment, fear of rejection, fear of getting it wrong, fear of looking foolish. But I think more importantly, and probably the most that I certainly relate to, fear of the unknown. And when I actually look back at my life and I think of all the times I wanted to change things in my relationship, change things in my job, do something different with my life, the overthinking set in. And it was that overthinking that stopped me from moving on. Our brain wants guarantees. It wants guarantees of safety. I don't think life can actually give us those. So what we need to do is actually realise that we don't need our brain to protect us. Not in this day and age. So we need to override that overthinking. Otherwise, we just stay stagnant. Our minds are constantly trying to protect us from emotional pain. The problem is they assume the best option is to do nothing. Most of the biggest decisions we make come without guarantees. Moving house, starting a business, telling somebody how you really feel, leaving a relationship. There is always uncertainty. And perhaps that's why many of us stay where we are. Not because it's making us happy, but because it's familiar. I think many of us have experienced this. We stay in jobs we don't like. We stay in relationships we're not happy in. We put off dreams because we're waiting for confidence to arrive. Yet confidence rarely arrives first. It normally arrives after we've taken that first step. The book made me question something I'd believed in for years. That more thinking automatically led to better decisions. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just creates more fear. It's like standing on the edge of a swimming pool. The more you stand there, the longer you look at the water, the more you're thinking about how cold it is, the harder it becomes to jump. Life can be like that. We stand on the edge of opportunities, waiting for the perfect moment or complete certainty, but they never arrive. The book does actually explain that this is not about stopping thinking. It was to stop believing that more thinking was going to give better answers. Sometimes you don't get the answers until you actually take action. Looking back, some of the greatest breakthroughs in my life didn't happen because I was thinking. They happened because I took the first step. I think the important thing to mention is that we haven't got to ignore every thought. Some thoughts are important and they do need to be followed through At some point, genuine problems do actually need addressing. The challenge is learning the difference between constructive thinking and overthinking. And that's where self-awareness becomes so valuable. If you are interested in reading this book, it is available on my website, link in the description. Thank you for listening, and if you are interested in hearing more honest conversation on healing and well-being, please join us and subscribe. Until next time, please take care.